sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good morning, everyone. Today we'll be starting a new topic. So far we have discussed about the Paramatta Dhammas, and from today onwards I'll be discussing about the other topics that were mentioned in the list. If you remember our initial list of the ultimacy. So from now today onwards there will be some for some there will be some new topics, because these topics are not much discussed in today's Abhidhamma when we discuss the basics. But my intention or thought was that these topics that will be starting from today are very useful and essential to understand, especially in understanding the Vipassana meditation. Today's topic has a certain relationship with Vipassana, but from next week onwards there will be very direct relationships with the Vipassana insight meditation that will be very useful, the knowledge of which will be utterly necessary, I would call, in some context, to understand, to see the reality and to get Vipassana Jnana, the wisdoms related to Vipassana. So if you have got I hope that most of you have got the handout, which was distributed a few days ago. So if I would suggest Dr. Ryan to share the Google link in the chat box. So if someone has not had the handout, could download it easily. So because we shared it in the WhatsApp group and also in the Viber groups that were made for this class. If someone is not in the groups yet, maybe they'll be able to download it now while the class is going. So before we start, the topic is named as Uppadino Dhamma. Uppadino Dhamma. So before we go into the topic, I would like to have a overlook about the basic topics that were listed in the list of the chart of ultimacy. So we'll first go into the chart. This was the basic chart with the ultimacy. Then this was divided into two. Sankata. Yeah, I think I wrote in Pali, right? Because we use the word Pali words. So ultimacy was called Paramattha. Then Sankata Paramattha. Conditioned ultimacy, ultimate natures. Then Asankata Paramattha. Sankata Paramattha and Asankata Paramattha. Sankata Paramattha was put into 4 groups. Paramattha Dhamma are the ultimate realities, of which we discussed, like Chitta, Cetasika, and Rupa. I think the last few weeks we dedicated in discussing these topics. Then we have Uppadino Dhamma, topic we are going to discuss today. Then next week we are going to talk about Paramattha Jatika. Then Anupanna Dhamma. These are under the list of Sankata Paramattha. Sankata Paramattha. Then in the Asankata Paramattha, the Nibbanas, we had 5 types of Nirvana. Sammuti Nibbana. Then we have Tadanga Nibbana. Vikambana Nibbana. Then we have Samucheda Nibbana. Lastly, Nissarana Nibbana. Then out of the group, these are the ultimacy. This is the ultimacy. Then we had Panyati. You know the name. Panyati. In between also, we had some realities like Tilakkana and so forth. Few, we'll be discussing them later. So this is the chart of the ultimacy. So we can bring everything here, but there will be some additions at the end, like Dhamma, Dhammata, like the 5 the laws of the universe and so forth. So in the end of this course, we'll completely fill the chart and discuss each and every topic which is mentioned here. So this is like an introduction to the ultimacy. So far we have discussed the natures. What is a paramatta? How do we call something a paramatta? We had discussed the characteristics of calling something a paramatta. Then we discussed the natures, the characteristics or traits of the paramatta, sankata paramattas. Why something should we call a sankata paramatta? Then we discussed the natures, like the characteristic of paramatta dhammas, and we also discussed about them in brief. So far we have done up to now, up to here. Then today we are going to discuss about these Uppadino Dhammas. This is our location in this chart. So far we have discussed the characteristics of paramattas in general, why something should be called a paramatta. Then conditioned realities. This is sankata, means conditioned realities. Then the characteristics of the conditioned ones. They depend on some other reality. They cannot exist alone. That is the basic characteristic of a conditioned reality. And also it has it normally, the very basic is they have condition, they depend on others. At the same time, they out of them, the paramatta dhammas, this group under the sankata paramattas, they have the arising, persisting and vanishing phases. So now but out of the sankata paramattas, the paramatta dhammas are the most prominent, significant. So these 3 that we are going to discuss in the following 3 weeks, including today, are we can say as stages, certain stages of these paramatta dhammas. But they are quite important in order to understand the existence and also for the eradication of defilements. And the defilements we eradicate are also found here. So therefore, normally in today's Theravada teachings, we normally discuss about these topics at a later stage, because when we come into the Vipassana, it is utterly necessary that we study these topics. So what I thought was, if we can give a holistic picture about the ultimacy from the beginning, so there will be, otherwise sometimes we tend to make complications, like if we know only, we normally study only this part in the beginning, and then people start to apply their knowledge of the paramatta dhammas into the entire doctrine and try to interpret the doctrine based on these paramatta dhammas. And sometimes they can miss these points, that these natures have been greatly used within the tradition to explain the continuity of the existence and also the attainment of the liberation. So therefore, I thought that it's better that we would discuss these topics from the beginning. So then there'll be much easier, smooth understanding about the core essence of the Theravada tradition when we go further. So therefore, now we are going to discuss about this Uppadino Dhammas. So a translation, a direct translation, normally they give a direct translation to this Uppadino Dhammas, but I prefer it to keep it in the Pali term, but to give an explanation on this. So if I give a definition to this Uppadino Dhammas before I start to explain each and every step of this definition, Uppadino Dhamma means the realities, the resultant realities that are supposed to arise, out of a karma that has gained the opportunity. This is a very basic definition of Uppadino Dhammas. Resultant realities, it can be mentalities, or it can be some mentalities, some physicality, right? The physical elements. The resultants, resultant means they are outcome of a karma, of a deed that we have done in the past. The resultant mentalities and materiality of a karma that is supposed to arise by a karma that has gained the opportunity are called Uppadino Dhammas. So Uppadino Dhammas have not arisen yet. Uppadino Dhammas have not arisen yet, but they are supposed to arise. They are about, we can rather saying about to arise, because if we say about to arise, we may think that it is going to happen very soon. But time, the duration of the time is not a fact here. The basic criteria is that the karma, its cause, has gained the opportunity for its outcome to appear. So after the karma has gained the opportunity, it has before the arising of the reality, these realities are called Uppadino Dhammas. For that we have to go step by step. I'll give a brief, like a simple simile analogy to understand this. For instance, now someone, a lady has normally a lady has a potential to give birth to a child. So she possesses a womb normally by birth. So then if she is fertile, she has the potency to give birth to a child. Now think the child as the Uppadino Dhammas. Think the child are the resultants. Are the resultants. Then when the mother has had the act of intimacy, the sexual act, normally the mother gets fertile, and then before the intimate act, she had the potency to give birth. So after the intimate act has happened, and imagine she got conceived by a child. So before she had the potency, now she is conceived by a child, and the child would remain in the mother's womb normally for 10 months, 9 or 7 or 9 months normally. And then she'll deliver the child. So the child who will be born are the resultant mentalities and the materiality. We can say the mother had the potency of giving birth, and the intimate act is like the karma. Intimate act is like the karma, the sexual act. Its result will be a child. Then if the act was done properly and the mother became fertile, a child is now in the womb. She got conceived by a child. So this moment, the 10 months, while the child is in the womb, is like the time the karma, the act, has gained the opportunity to give a result. So while the child is in the womb, when we consider the child, the resultant is the born child, not the fetus. We can say the resultant has not arisen yet. The child has not been born, but she's about to get delivered. He or she is about to get delivered. So while he or she is in the fetus at the level of fetus or in the womb, she or he is about to be born but has not been born yet. So during the fetus, the time the child is like the word upadino, if we take this into the analogy of karma and its result, the fetus is like the upadino dhammas. It's not the resultant mentalities that have arisen. They are the a potential stage of the resultant mentalities. But it is quite different from before the sexual act. The mother had the potency to give birth to a child. There were certain possibilities. But now, when the child has come into the womb, she's in the womb. At that time, it's much closer. It's much destined. Like it more determined. The child is born. But still, there can be some disturbances or complications, and the child may die. Possibility is still there. So likewise, the upadino dhammas can be prevented from their birth. There are possibilities. Some may not be, some may not, but sometimes it is possible. But if there was not any specific prevention, upadino, like the child will be born, the upadino dhamma will arise as realities. So this is the normal analogy that we can offer at this stage. So before we go, now we'll go into analyze what does it mean, the upadino dhamma. So I'll just, before I erase, now we are in this chart, we are going to explain all the topics in the chart every week. Up to now, we have discussed about the ultimate realities, and also still we are under the conditioned realities. So after we have finished these three, we move into the unconditioned realities, which we call the nirvana, and then go into some other special topics that are related to the topic of ultimacy. Just to remind before I erase, there will be few more topics that will enter into this chart. So then it will come into a completion. So now we'll go into explain what upadino dhamma are. Dhamma. Normally, when we do a karma, a non-arahant, when he does a karma, a certain energy or a force implants onto his mind stream, or we can say get implanted. We say in intransitive, as an intransitive word, is implanted onto the mind stream. What does it mean that now our mind works one after another? We have discussed about this. Arises, passes away, arises, passes away. So when someone has done an act called karma, a deed, good or bad, a certain energy would remain in our mind stream, and it is implanted, not by someone, as a natural cause. So this energy implanting onto the mind stream means it would start to follow the mind stream till it gets an opportunity. So if we try to bring it into a diagram, so the mind arises, passes away, arises, passes away. Chetana, normally the karma is called the chetana, the volition. It arises and passes away. Now it's no more. A new mind arises and passes away. But this chetana, if it was a karma, we normally call a karma a deed, a certain energy would be implanted here, would get implanted. We can call it karma sati. energy of the karma. And this karma sati would follow each and every mind as a certain energy. So how do I say this? Why has the Buddha ever mentioned about such an energy? Yes. In Dhammapada, he mentioned, I have given in the handout, 1.28. So he mentioned in Dhammapada, nahi kammang katam papang sajjukirang mucchati dahantang bala manveti basmat channava pavaku. As the milk of a cow does not turn into curd as soon as it has been milked. The evil deed done by a fool means a mean person, follows him or her like blazing charcoal covered with ashes. So this is a solid evidence for the Theravadians to say that a certain karmic energy, a karmic force, whatever the word we use, force or energy, though scientifically they are two things, but I would use it as that has a positive potency to produce something new, which act as a force sometimes, which affects our mind. So even both the terms can be usable at this context. So a karma, energy of the karma remains. So karma energy, I'll try to use the English terms here. Maybe otherwise it will be too much of Pali. Karmic energy. Karmic energy. This energy would follow the mind stream. And if you remember the first verse Gatha of the Dhammapada, even the evil doer, the evil deed would follow the person like the wheel of the wheel follows the oxen who drags the cart. So likewise, the karmic energies, the person who has done good, the evil, the good force, the good karmic energy would follow him, would not let go of him like the shadow. So likewise, in both the good and bad aspects of the karma, Buddha has suggested or mentioned that a force would follow this person. So in our Pali terms, we call it kamma sati. We can translate it as the karmic energy or a karmic force that follows the mind stream. Then, so in our long samsara, we have done abundant number of karmas, countless number of karmas, of which the energy is still following us. So what is the state of this energy? How do we explain it? Is it a physical thing? It's very difficult to explain. It's not a physical stuff. It's not physical stuff according to the Theravadians, because the mind itself, the karma itself is not physical. We need a physical body to perform the karma, and the physical actions we do also do affect this karmic force. There is a great influence of the how the body was involved in the act. For instance, if someone behead someone, like cut the head of some person, so as a result we would get beheaded. Similarly we would get beheaded. Like that's how the karma has been explained. Similar traits we call kamma sarikkata, kamma sarikka vipaka. Vipaka is similar to how the karma has been done. Not equal, 100% equal, but there is a resemblance. So that's why I mentioned the physical involvement also has a effect on this karma. So it's something which is unexplainable entirely. But according to the doctrine, such a energy or such a force remains within the mind stream after the deed has been done. Then this energy would follow. So there are lots of energies, such energies that have been stored up within the mind stream. This energy we do not call it, or we do not term it as a chitta or chetasika or a rupa. This is something we call it like it's a one stage of chetasikas, a one stage. And in the list, if you remember in the Sankata Paramatta list, we had Paramatta Dhammas that we have discussed already. Then we had Uppadino Dhammas, the today's topic. The number 3 was Paramatta Jatika. I think if you have the handout, the first handout I have given, if you cannot recall the chart, in this chart, the second page of the first handout, we find, actually it is in the number 4 in this chart, Paramatta Jatika. So this karmic energy falls into that category. We don't term it as a Paramatta Dhamma. This is a Paramatta Dhamma. It's a reality that has arisen, that has the natures of arising, persisting, and passing away. We can see it as a reality. See it means observe it as a reality. It is mixed. It is connected with some other realities. So it fits to be called something called a Paramatta Dhammas. The energy which remains is not a stage of arising, persisting, or vanishing. We don't call it so because it doesn't pop up like. So there is it's something like a potential or potency that remains, which also affects the mind stream and also which brings forth resultant consciousness, which will be shown in few minutes. So this karmic energy remains within the mind stream. We call it, it is not something apart, like just to show it separately. I brought it like this, do it like this, but normally it remains together with the mind stream. So then someone can ask, is it mixed with the mind like a Chetasika? We don't call it so. We say it is associate in the mind stream. So there are two types of associations in this context. The Chetasikas and the Chitta, the mental factors and the consciousness associate each other. These energies, the forces, the latent defilements, the karmic forces, they also associate the mind stream, but not in the level of mind and mental factors associating each other, not in that manner. So it's a different type of an association. So why do we say it associates the mind? Because it greatly affects the mind. It greatly affects the mind, especially close to death. This karmic force is responsible for bringing forth near-death signs and also the latent defilements, which we'll be discussing next week, does affect the mind. So the mind gets an urge to continue even after death. The mind stream doesn't stop at the moment of death because it is supported by a latent force called latent defilement. Even the person's mind is wholesome at that moment, close to death, but still it will be pushed by a certain force which we call the latent defilement. The latent defilement, not the defilements that arise in the mind, but actually they are not two things that we normally call. They are the latent stage of the defilements that arise in the mind. So this is the latent or the potential stage of the karma, which has been already done. Its potential stage is this. So all these things that which are driven drawn at the bottom of this diagram are potencies. So then we know that there have been a lot of karmic energy stored up till now. The next fundamental is, even after the karma has been done and the energy is stored, it needs something called it needs an opportunity to give the result. The word opportunity is necessary. It's not that all the karma would give results randomly. There is a certain randomness, but even during the random appearance, they should get an opportunity. This is a very important word used in the doctrine. Opportunity. It's like, I'll use the same. So this karma would follow the mind stream. The person continues to live. And if we call this as the death, at a certain stage before the death, the karma gets an opportunity. I'll draw it with this angle. So now the karma has gained the opportunity. Gaining the opportunity. gaining the opportunity. So the karma gains the opportunity means it's about to give the results. Out of the lot of the karmas, when we are supposed to be born in next life, only one karma gets the opportunity. Only one karma gets the opportunity. There are some occasions that 2 or 3 karmas may gain the opportunity, may try to come into the opportunity, but there will be some, at the end, one would win and only a one karma would give the rebirth. So that is a very basic fundamentals of the Theravadians. So likewise, a karma may gain the opportunity to give a result. So now, think someone is about to die. Someone is about to die. Now, so no, we'll bring it up to here. Not died yet, but the opportunity has been gained. If the opportunity was gained here, this is the opportunity, gaining the opportunity. But still, now after gaining the opportunity, it is about to give a result. It's about to produce something. The karma would bring resultant consciousness, mental factors, and some karma born matter. So now, and these karmas, and also I would like to remind that these karmas need the support of 2 things: avidya, the ignorance, and tanha, the craving. Only the support of these karma will be active to give a result, give a rebirth. So this diagram goes, this will be the birth, that was the past life. I think you remember this chart. We have drawn it few times already. So now the karma has gained the opportunity to give its result. Gaining the opportunity means gaining an occasion. Now it's able to give a result. At this stage, karma is not able to give a result. Gaining the opportunity may happen in 2 ways. The karma itself, if it is powerful enough, may gain the opportunity in a suitable time, at a suitable time, occasion. Sometimes when the conditions, outside conditions gather, certain karmas get the opportunity. Sometimes our behavior also plays a huge role in gaining the giving the opportunity for certain karmas. So now the point is here, the karma has gained the opportunity, but it has not yet produced the results. The resultant mentalities, just the resultants, not all the mentalities in the future life. The resultant, so I'll maybe I'll confine it to here, right? There can be a lot of non-resultants would also appear after the birth has been given. Otherwise, sometimes we may misunderstand the entire life which is going to happen should be called upadino. No, only the resultants. Because if you remember, when we classified the chittas, we had wholesome chittas, unwholesome chittas, functional chittas, resultant chittas. We are talking about the resultant consciousness. And also in terms of matter, we had karma born matter, matter born out of food, matter nutriment, matter born out of heat and the coldness, and also out of the mind, based on mind. So we are talking about the matter born out of karma, and also the resultant consciousness and the mental factors which are resultants, like which are vipaka, not all the mental, all the realities. Now the karma has gained the opportunity, but it has not given the results yet, since the cause. Now this is the effect and this is the cause. Karma is the cause, resultants are the effects. But the thing is, the cause has gained the opportunity, but the results have not yet come out. They have not arisen yet. such resultant mentalities and physicality or the corporeal elements which have not arisen yet. That's why we mark with the broken lines. Which has not arisen yet, but of which the karma has gained the opportunity. The karma has gained the opportunity, are called Upadino Dhammas. This is the definition. Karma has gained the opportunity. The cause has gained the opportunity. It was done before. It was there as a storage. Then it stored things. So it gained the opportunity, but the resultant has not come up. So these effects or the resultants are the Upadino Dhammas. So after the karma gained the opportunity, we also have a specific name for this karma. If you take this is the karma force, we call it Laddo Kasa karma. I'll be using Pali terms, but the English terminology is quite easy to understand. Okasa Kata karma. Two, we have synonyms for this. Laddo Kasa karma or Okasa Kata karma. It means the karma that has gained the opportunity. This karma has not gained the opportunity. We call it Aladdo Kasa, Anokasa Kata karma. This means the karma which have gained opportunity. These are the karmas not gained, not yet. They haven't gained yet. So here they have gained. So after the karma has gained the opportunity, we have specific names for karma. We can use the karma which gained the opportunity. The resultants have not arisen yet. That is the important point. It has not arisen. These resultants. So Upadino Dhamma is not a term for the karma. It's a term for the realities that are going to happen. The realities that are going to happen. These are called Upadino Dhamma. So in the Buddhist context, Theravāda context, the thing is, these realities, though they have not arisen yet, even before they are arising, but after the karma has gained the opportunity, from this point onwards, even before they are arising, they are considered existing. Is the point here. They are considered existing. So normally we know they have existed, or while something is in a existing phase, like it has arisen but not passed away, we call it existing. This is the Pachuppanna, arisen reality but has not passed away. We call it existing reality. The realities that have passed away, we call it non-existing realities. Realities which has not arisen yet, Anagata realities are also not non-existing realities. But after now, that is a different now. In terms of Paramatta Dhammas, the first categorization, what has arisen and passed away is non-existing. What has not arisen yet is also not existing. Which has arisen but not completely passed away yet is called existing. That is a different categorization. Now, when we come to the Upadino Dhammas, the categorization is different. After the karma has gained the opportunity, before its arising, it's considered as existing by the Buddha. It's not something belonging to the tradition, later tradition. The Buddha has explained this in the Pottapada Sutta. Not in these terms, but when we go into the Sutta, we find what he has said was this phenomenon. So in the Upadino case, the resultant mentalities and the karma-born matter, which are supposed to arise out of a karma which gained the opportunity, is considered existing. But in case, if this karma is prevented, there can be means by which some karma can be prevented. If it is prevented, then this comes into non-existence before it's arising. Before it's arising. And also before the karma gained the opportunity, in terms of Upadino, we don't call it existing. So here the existing nature is the reality, the cause has gained the opportunity to give the result. The result before its arising is still called existing. So now someone can ask the question, aren't these the future realities? Are these not the future realities? About that discussion, I'll take some few lectures to come to this point and tell that these, we are not talking about the future realities. We are talking about the potency actually. The potency to give the for the arising. So when we go further, when we finish the entire three topics, there will be a slight difference in the diagram. Now, at this moment, I use this sort of drawing to make it much easier for the convenience in transferring the idea. So likewise, now these realities, we are not talking about the future realities, the potential realities that are supposed to happen out of a karma which has gained the opportunity. So they are considered existing according to Theravāda tradition. So where did the Buddha mention about this? If you go into 1.32, according to this notion, when a certain karma has given a rebirth, before going into that, so this is the basic explanation. Now think the Buddha's explanation. Now we'll consider the person. It's supposed that the person lived. Now this is not the existing part. He died and then he was born. Suppose he was born. The karma was not prevented from resulting. So he was born. The rebirth happened. So it means the karma got the opportunity, it was not prevented, so the rebirth happened. Right? The rebirth happened. So what happens normally? A karma which gives the rebirth would produce all the Patisandhi, Bhavanga and Chuti Chittas. Bhavanga means the life continuum. Lots of Chittas will be produced by the karma which gave the rebirth. Not all the Chittas in one life. Most of the Chittas, the very basic Chittas are produced by that same karma which gave the rebirth. So this karma is going to produce number of Chittas in this life. Not all Chittas, number of Chittas. Right? Some Chittas can be produced by some other means. Now think, this person is still living. Now if we think the person is living at this moment, but those karmas, that karma which gave the rebirth is supposed to produce some other Chittas, like similar Chittas, which are drawn in the blue color. It is the same phenomenon. So here in the diagram which we discussed before, the karma gained the opportunity, but the resultant, the consciousness had not, the first resultant consciousness had not arisen. Now here it has, the few resultant consciousness have arisen, but there are more to come. There are more consciousness to come out of the same karma which gained the opportunity. The opportunity was gained from here. So now, what about these consciousness? which has not arisen yet, but it's the same karma has already got the opportunity. They have not arisen. So they also deserve to be called Upadino Dhamma, even after the rebirth is given. Now, these realities cannot be called Upadino because they have arisen yet. After they have arisen, we cannot call it Upadino. It has to be something which is going to happen. So these resultant consciousness, results of this karma has not arisen yet. So we can call them Upadino yet, still. Right? Now, with this understanding, we go into the sutra. 1.32. According to this notion, when a certain karma has given a rebirth in a particular life, all the bhavanga chittas and the chuti chitta that are bound to arise are considered existing even before they have arisen. At this stage, the future bhavanga, which are going to happen in future, these bhavanga and chuti chittas are also considered existing, the same phenomenon. This is one of the fundamental notions that the Buddha used in delivering the Pottapada Sutra. So if you go into the English translation, Pottapada, while the immaterial self produced by perception exists. So here, immaterial self produced by perception is the bhavanga chitta of an arupa being. Bhavanga chitta of an arupa being exists. A different perception arises and vanishes to that person. So while he said the resultant consciousness, the bhavanga chittas exist, different mentalities arise and pass away. Now, for example, this is a different mentality. It is not produced by karma. It is not a resultant of a karma. It arises, passes away. But the Buddha considered, now these realities, according to him, have arisen and passed away. They are not existing anymore because they have passed away. So this is the different perception which has arisen. So he still considered the immaterial self produced by perception. It means the bhavanga chitta. I'll use simple terms. The resultant consciousness. Resultant consciousness of this karma still exists. So what does it mean? The tradition interprets this as he is referring to the bhavangas which are going to happen because already existing has passed away. A different consciousness arises and passes away. So while a different consciousness arises and passes away, still the main mind, the resultant mind exists. So what are these resultant minds? The minds which are going to happen as a result of the karma which gave the rebirth. They have not arisen yet, but the Buddha has considered them as arisen. So we'll go into the next paragraph. It will be easy to understand when you read. The immaterial self produced by perception here referred in the sutta is the bhavanga chitta of an arupa being. This is the bhavanga chitta in blue color. When another perception has arisen, when another perception, the black color ones have arisen, the bhavanga chitta has already vanished. This bhavanga has already vanished. That's clear. Because according to the Buddha, as preserved in the Theravāda Doctrine, no two consciousness can happen at the same time to the same being. Right? Only one consciousness at a time. But the Buddha can now when this consciousness, right, the bhavanga, the blue color ones have passed away. But the Buddha considered the bhavanga existing. He mentioned that it is still existing. Since why he did consider that? Since the new perception, when the new perception, this new perception has passed away, the black color one passed away, a new bhavanga chitta of similar nature will surely arise. It's going to happen. It's surely arise. The certainty of these new bhavanga chittas to arise is because the karma which gave which produced them has already gained the opportunity. They have gained, the karma has gained the opportunity even before they have arisen. They are considered as existing. Therefore, the bhavanga chittas that are bound to arise are considered existing. So Buddha mentioned, while the main bhavanga exists, not this, we cannot bring it to here because they have passed away already. While the main bhavanga chitta exists, a different perception arises and passes away. Otherwise, it brings a huge contradiction to one of the basic fundamentals of the teachings. It seems like when the main chitta remains, a different chitta arises and passes away. It seems like there are two chittas happening at the same time. So this is contradicting to what has been mentioned in the Nidana Sutta, Mahanidana. So the Theravādas explain that the idea of the Buddha was to consider the bhavangas that are going to happen as existing. Why he consider it as existing? Because its cause has gained the opportunity already. So this is the place where the Upadino Dhammas are referred by the Buddha, but in different terminologies. We go to the next page, page number 2, we find the top line. The existing nature of Upadino Dhamma is their bounded nature to arise due to their cause having gained the opportunity to yield its results. The cause has gained the opportunity to yield its results. So resultant before its arising is considered as existing. We give it a term, a name called Upadino. We coin it as Upadino Dhamma. Then, yeah, I hope the idea was clear. I hope. So we can have discussions if there was any unclear thing. So now before they are arising, they are called Upadino. But think, if when they have arisen, now think down, this has continued and the chitta has arisen, right? Not passed away. At this stage, we don't call it Upadino Dhamma. We call it a Paramatta Dhamma because it has arisen. After it has arisen, we call it Paramatta Dhamma. It's a Chitta or Chetasika, the Vipaka Chitta Chetasikas, which we discussed in the previous lectures, the mind and so forth. After it has arisen, coming to the stages of Upadititi Bhanga, arising, persisting, and vanishing. Vanishing means in the process of vanishing, we call it ultimate reality, right? So then, yeah, this is the point. So before they are arising, now the Upadino Dhammas, normally we don't call it Anagata, but I'll give a holistic picture about these terminologies in a future lecture. How do we consider about them, right? Then these karma, after it's gained the opportunity, before it's producing the result, we call it like the karma which gave the opportunity. So these are the karmas which are responsible for seeing near-death signs. These karmas brings forth, right? These karmas bring forth. And the last thing to be mentioned, after karma has gained the opportunity, before it gives the resultant, before it gives the rebirth, sometimes such karmas can be prevented from giving results. There are many examples, few examples given in the doctrine about this such phenomenon. There was a father of a monk who was involved in hunting as for his livelihood. He was killing animals. So the monk was well learned, and he thought that I have guided many people towards the liberation and the correct livelihood, but I was unable to correct my father. So he thought to bring him to a good, proper, correct livelihood. So when the father was quite old, he went to him and forced him to get ordained. So out of respect to the son, and he also didn't have much strength to go for hunting, so he ordained, and he was living under the care of the monks because he was quite old. So at just one day while the monk was involved in some other activity, the father monk used to cry at seeing that he has started to see some dogs coming towards him, and there were no actual dogs around. So those young monks informed this matter to the Thera, the monk, and he knew what has happened is one of the karmas that he has lot of karma that he had done in the past, out of them one has come forth and he's about to give a result, and he's about to be born in a woeful realm. So the monk knew that this can be prevented. He was seeing some signs of karma nimitta, that the dogs he used to kill certain animals, he was seeing them, even though they were not actually there. He was remembering actually. Then the monk knew that it can be prevented. So he asked the small monks, novices, the samaneras, to bring flowers as much as possible from the forest, and brought the father monk near to a pagoda, a cheti, and then he made like he brought the flowers and made the father with loud sounds. We made the father monks to offer these flowers to the cheti. He said, these flowers have been brought for you to offer to the Buddha. So he was very happy, and his mind started to change because he was involved in certain acts, certain wholesome acts. So what happened? The karma which gave the opportunity was prevented by a new karma that he was doing close to death. So what happened? That karma was prevented. A new karma came forth, which he was doing near to death, and it says, book says, he was born in the heavens after his death. So likewise, even though a karma has gained the opportunity, some karmas can be prevented by some other means, by doing some other new karmas or recalling new karmas. And it happened to the king Duttagamini Abhaya of Sri Lanka, who had done lots of support to the Sasana, but he was starting to remember the war he did and the killings he did or instructed during the war. So one Arahant came to him and recalled and reminded him of the many good deeds that he has done as a king. So then when the recollection was happening, his karma, which gained the opportunity, the akusala karma was subdued, and new good karma came forth, and he was able to be born in the heavens. This is how the story goes. So now the things to be taken away from this lecture is that existing nature, now we are coming into a different aspect of the existing nature. So far we discussed something which has arisen but not passed away yet is called existing. Something which has already arisen and passed away is called non-existing. Something which has not arisen is called non-existing as a future reality. Then today we came into a different topic called Upadino Dhammas. If a resultant consciousness or the matter, the karma, after the karma has gained the opportunity, its resultant matter and the consciousness, even before its arising, is considered existing. So then, it's considered existing, and Buddha has used that term for this, the existing nature, the existing term. So this shows that now the approach is that. So normally in today's, I would say, the mindset that we have as we have followed a certain educational system, we normally understand in our day-to-day lives, like future has not come yet. The future has not come yet. But according to Buddha's philosophy, Buddha's point of view, the future, though it has not come yet, the causes have gathered, and if the future is bound to happen, it is going to happen, he has considered it as existing. He has considered it as existing. Why is that? That thing is bound to happen. So this existing nature shows, that's why he mentioned, like the same phenomenon, same philosophy will be used in some other terms. That's why he mentioned a person. Now we are in a comfortable state as human beings. But as long as our karma is still there, which can give rebirths in the future in woeful realms, we are not freed from the suffering that is going to happen. So this is the essence of this lecture. Like we have to start to think according to if we start to practice according to the Buddha's doctrine, though the future has not arisen yet, in one term, it has not arisen. So Buddha said, no, don't think too much about the future because it has not come yet. Focus on the present, live in the present moment. Like present means do your activities well, but fulfill your responsibilities without pondering about the unknown future. But at the same time, when we come into these topics, Upadino, Paramatta Jatika, and Anuppanna Dhammas, he has emphasized that we have to have some urgency about the future because that future is existing in one way or another. Existing doesn't mean that it cannot be changed, it is fixed. No, it doesn't mean like that. It means we are not freed from that. So we cannot utter, or we cannot say that we are free men, or we cannot say we are free women, like we are utterly, entirely released from the suffering, even though we don't experience any suffering at the moment. So now what the thought that we have to arise is the future, the resultants, the suffering, we are bound with that, and we have to consider it as something existing. Existing not in the sense of have arisen and not passed away, but we are bound with it. We are not freed from it. So we have to strive to get rid of such suffering that are already existing in one way or in a certain manner. So that is the main point. So to conclude the class, the lecture, Upadino Dhammas are the resultant mentalities and the karma-born matter that are supposed to arise. Why? The cause, its cause, because its cause has gained the opportunity, right? So this is the such a karma is called the karma which has gained the opportunity. Such resultant which has not arisen yet are called Upadino Dhamma. This will be the lecture. So I hope most of you could understand the basic idea of this lecture. So I'll open the forum for the Q&A session.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you so much, Bhante. Hello, everyone. So as usual, if you have any questions, please raise your hand or put the question in the chat box. Good morning, Bhante. So I have a question. So this is like a little bit technical. So when you say that a karma gains the opportunity, so I'm wondering if should we say the karma sati gains the opportunity instead of we saying karma gains the opportunity, because karma is no longer there.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, because karma is what Dr. Ryan is asking. Karma has already passed away. The karma sati is what remaining, and it is gaining the opportunity. So this is how we understand in technique. Like when we want to understand this philosophy, we divide these terminologies. So that is how it has been explained in the commentaries and the sub commentaries to gain a easy understanding. But the doctrine has used the term karma. So the karma sati, though we see it has different characteristics, the karma sati has been addressed with the term karma. So we normally say karma itself arises and passes away, and it gets stored. So the karma sati, even though it has different characteristics, still it has been addressed by the same word. So the word, even though we used it karma sati, the Buddha and also books have used the same term. But even when we say the karma gains the opportunity, actually what has gained the opportunity is the karma sati, not this chetana karma. But it's not wrong to use the word karma here, because that is how it has been used. So normally the commentators, to show that this thing, he said atitampi samanang kammang okasan labati. Even though the karma has already passed, it gains the opportunity. So what it gains, what gains the opportunity, the karma sati, but they have used the same term. So that's why the main reason is they do not want to distinguish this as two layers. They don't want to distinguish this as two layers. They want to call the same karma is in a different stage. But for the easy understanding, we call it karma sati. But we can clearly see different characteristics of these two stages. So I'll be discussing this after we have finished the Anupanna Dhammas, these slight differences, and how do we term them? What are the differences that we can see in these stages, and what are the terminologies they have used to these kind of forces? I'll be discussing them. So as you said, technically the karma sati gained the opportunity, but grammatically or conventionally in the usage, we still call this the karma.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Yes,
Clear. Thank you, Bhante. And the other question is, Bhante, so when you say that the karma gains the opportunity, and then when it actually produces the results, which means the results are the Bhavangacittas and the Kamacharupas. So
not all.
Not all, Bhante.
It means even Chakku Vijnana, falls into this category.
I see. And then also, so and then how are we going to explain the situation where, like last time we discussed, like a bhikkhu becomes a bhikkhuni, which means when he becomes a bhikkhuni, he has a different kamacharupa. So does that mean that a different karma, so like the upagataka karma, comes into place?
You mean karma, now when the bhava rupa changes, a monk becoming a nun, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Or then in that case, what has happened is, according to the Theravadians, it has been explained in the sub-commentary for Vinaya, because this issue comes in Vinaya. So they have tried to explain this. Now this karma has given the resultant, is going to give the result the entire life. So what they're happening is, the karma gave a result, bhava rupa also arises from the moment of patisandhi moment. So this is going to go. So now what happens when the sex change happens, this karma which gave the karma sati, we can call, I'll be using the term karma which gave the rebirth will be interrupted or disturbed by another karma. It's disturbed by another karma. Maybe a karma that he did in that same life, or a past life karma comes forth and disturbs this. The karma which gained the opportunity, which is now in the process of producing the bhava rupas. So when it has been disturbed, instead of producing male bhava rupas, it starts to produce female bhava rupas. So the same karma, because it has been disturbed by some other karma, it starts to produce some different type of bhava rupas. Sometimes even it can stop producing bhava rupas if the karma is very severe.
I see. So the karma is still the same, but so you said that it's disrupted by something else.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. So it's not a different karma come in and produce it.
Yeah, according to Theravadians, no.
I see. Okay, thank you, Bhante. Okay, I don't see any question yet. So see, I have another question, but it's not quite related to this material today. So it's about the relative of the King Bimbisara in the past, right? I think it's King Bimbisara. So in the past, like the relatives, the King Bimbisara, they committed some evil deed, like stealing the food that was supposed to be for the sangha, but they ate it in it beforehand. So then they became hungry ghosts for many lives. And then from my understanding is that those betas, they approached a number of Buddhas before our Buddha, the Gautama Buddha, and they also wanted to know whether or not, or I mean the way how they can escape that difficult life. And then from my understanding and my memories is that the past Buddhas, when they look into the future, they saw something. They said that, okay, you have to wait until the Gautama Buddha. So the question is, why did the past Buddhas said such things? So does that mean that they didn't really see actually what happened in the future? So why did they say that those beta had to wait for the Gautama Buddha in order to tell them what to do? So I guess the other way to put the question is that when we say that the Buddha can see the future, so does that mean that, in order to see it clearly, there are some certain conditions have to come into the place for that future to be materialized for him to see? Or maybe in this case, that future is not certain yet. So maybe, the previous, the past Buddha could not see it for certain yet. So they could not say it clearly like that.
I go into the second explanation, because when it is not certain, the Buddha is unable to see it. Because if Otherwise, we fall into the doctrine of determinism, that everything can be seen. So I'm not denying the omnisciency of a Buddha. Omnisciency of the Buddha is that if something is determined, he is able to see it clearly. And the next point is, if something is not determined, he is able to see all the possibilities, that this would have this, if he works like this would have happened. If this works like this would have happened. So he sees all the possibilities, and then it will be a huge possibilities, huge amount of possibilities. So I personally feel is like, among the possibilities or probabilities, I would call, or probabilities now, some would have a 60% of a probability, some has a 30%, some has 10%. So he knows the probability is more to have, what probabilities have to happen is, in this case, like what is 60% probability. But still he finds that there is, if something changes in between because of whatever reason, this can divert. So in that cases, they would not prophesize the thing. So that's the main thing. Personally, I feel a bodhisattva is prophesized to become a future Buddha. Couldn't the Buddhas before Dipankara, just one Buddha before Dipankara, according to the tradition, Tanhankara, Medankara, Saranankara Buddha, the Bodhisattva met him, some says. The Saranankara Buddha, couldn't he prophesize the future of the Siddhartha? Because it's just one Buddha away, like just few, compared to the samsara, few years left, but it's a huge number of years. Because I think personally what I see is, he was 98 or 99% certain to be a Buddha, but still there were some possibilities that he could have diverted if these things happens, but unlikely, but still. So only after it becomes fully certain that a Buddha would say that this is going to happen. Otherwise, I personally don't think a Buddha can see into the future, into an unmeasurable time. Otherwise, everything would be determined.
I see. Okay. Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
So then it's not a difficulty. It's not negating his omnisciency, because if something is not determined, he cannot say it determined. He cannot see it certainly. What he would be seeing is, he has a possibility. There is a probability or a possibility that the person would understand. The person would get into such status. There is a possibility, but still there are some uncertainties.
Right. Okay, thank you, Bhante. And then, yes, I did another question, Bhante. So I don't remember the sutta, but in one sutta, the Buddha said that, so when the following three things happens, then phassa will arise. So those three things are Dhammayatana, Manodwara, and Manoviññāna. So when three things meet, then phassa arises. But and then we know that Manodwara is Bhavanga Citta, right? So and then the Bhavanga Citta, and then so the Bhavanga Citta arises, and then some Dhammayatana will appear, and then the Bhavanga Citta is going to pass away, and then we're going to have Manoviññāna appears. So it looks to me that the Manodwara will arise first, and the Manoviññāna later. So then how can we say that those three things at the same time? How are we going to understand this?
Manancha paticca dhammecha uppajjati manoviññānaṁ, right? Tinnan sangati passo.
Yes.
Right. Actually, this word Tinnan sangati, like mana, dhamma plus manoviññāna, right? Tinnang sangati passa. So the gathering of these three, the coming together of these three is called the passa. That's how normally we translate. Tinnan sangati passa. So Tinnan sangati passa, the sangati, now according to the tradition, the Theravadis explain, this is the manifestation of passa. It's not the characteristic. It's not the function. Manifestation. So when the passa arises, the yogi sees it. Yogi understands it likewise. So in the same thing, we have chakku, rupa, chakku viññāna. The gathering of all three is passa. So it manifests as the three things have come together. It manifests to the yogi. Just the gathering is not the passa, the manifestation is like. So that's why otherwise we say stinnan sangati passo. The gathering of three things is passa. The passa doesn't have a characteristic because it's just the gathering of the all three is called the passa. So if we go into this explanation in terms of the wordings, passa doesn't have an independent existence. But in the Dhamma Anupada Sutta and a few other places, Buddha has mentioned that the passa is a cetasika. It's a separate entity. It arises and passes away. So according to this statement, the gathering of three things is called passa. If just it's the passa is the gathering of three things, the passa doesn't have an independent existing. So the Theravadians explain this is not the characteristic of passa, it's the manifestation of the passa. So therefore, so when we call the manifestation, it's not necessarily that they have to be always together, to my understanding. What I feel is. So Manodwara was the Bhavanga Chitta. Bhavanga Chitta together with the Avajjana. That's how some explain. Manancha, this cha includes the Avajjana Chitta also. Sorry, not cha. Mana includes the Vidya Avajjana, the Manodwara Avajjana. Then we are talking about then we come into the Javana Chitta here. So these Bhavanga over together with Avajjana, or even we just take Bhavanga, it's okay. So Mano Viññāna, because Mano Viññāna can be called, Avajjana can also be called Mano Viññāna, but the tradition wants to hold that Avajjana is included in the word Mana. So the Bhavanga Chitta arises, passes away. The mind Mano Viññāna arises with certain cetasikas, and they are all gathering is the passa, and also we can bring the hard base there, which is also Dhammayatana, but we don't need to bring it actually. So now when we observe the passa, we feel like gathering of chitta and cetasikas, and also object that gathering, the passa appears as that gathering. So here Mano, the Bhavanga Chitta, is like the person may experience it as, now there was a do, the mind do. This occurred in the mind do. So therefore, like I do, when we think the the contact of the I do cannot be avoided. So we know that this Mano Viññāna, this Dhammayatana, all gathered in the mind, though the mind has already passed away. The idea of mind would still be there when we observe this mind. So we normally know this passa, the Mano Viññāna, the Cetasikas, and all happen in the mind. So that the idea of mind is there. So if we analyze where did this passa arose, it appeared in the mind. Technically, it has passed away. But when we observe, our mind understand the passa as a mindo passa. So that is why it is explained as Tinnan Sangati Passo. This is how it manifests to the yogi. It's not that all have to be there to something to be called passa. This is how the yogi would understand, because when we are observing the mindo, we know this has occurred in the mindo, and the mindo, the Bhavanga Chitta, has already passed away, but still, as we understand it as something in the mindo, so Buddha has given the gathering of all these three is the passa.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yeah, there is no questions and no hand today. Okay, Bhante.
So what do you think? We'll call it a day then?
Yes, Bhante. Yeah, I think it's almost time, Bhante. Thank you
right.
so much, Bhante. Yes.
Okay, sadhu, sadhu. And with this merits of discussing the Dhamma, there is one hand, is it?
Oh yeah, just one hand now, Bhante. Okay. Please go ahead, Mr. Ananda.
Bhante, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can.
Bhante, actually, I was not very clear about the passa. So, Tinna Sangati Passa, when you were saying passa according to Theravāda tradition, so passa, I thought is the next step, like passa is a chaitasika, right?
Yeah.
So, three things coming together is not, three things coming together is not called passa, but passa is happening after three things coming together. Is that right, Bhante? I just want to clarify.
No.
No?
Three things coming together is not a reality. It's just a gathering. So when this statement according to Theravādians is how the passa is manifested. Manifested means we understand when we observe the passa coming of
Yes.
these three. So we understand the passa as the coming of these three. So if we just focus on this statement, passa will not have its own existence because it's just a gathering of three things. So some would start to explain passa is not a chetasika. It's just the gathering of three things. So that's why I mentioned according to Theravādians, this term is just how the passa manifests, because in few suttas Buddha has mentioned passa as a chetasika. So therefore, when the three things come together, passa arises at the same time. Like together with the manoviññāna, passa arises. Together with the dhammayatana, passa arises. But this is how, when we focus on the passa separately, this is how the yogi feels it or understands it. It's how the understanding comes up. It's not an explanation about the passa.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a when the three manoviññāna is there, dhammayatana is there, the bhavanga has supported in the previous. So passa arises together with the manoviññāna. It arises together with the manoviññāna. But when we observe it, we understand it as the gathering of three things.
So, Bhante, any viññāna has passa already in it, right? Like seven, sarva chitta sadharana. So here, what I thought was the passa is kind of taking the leading role, right? Is that how it happens?
Passa does take the leading role, yes. So
now, when you say manoviññāna is happening, not passa. Sorry, I didn't get it correctly.
It's like this.
Can you?
Yeah. We'll. So this is the mano, bhavanga chitta. Okay, we'll just go bhavanga chitta. Then we have avajjana, javana. So with the javana, we have chetasikas, all. So out of chetasika, passa is one. Then there are some more. They happen together, right? So passa, the chetasikas, manoviññāna appears together, but as a cluster. This happened before, it has passed away already. This is the mano. This is the, normally, if I precisely say, mano means these two together according to tradition. Then javana chitta is manoviññāna. Right? This is the manoviññāna. These are dhammayatana. Right? Dhamma ramana, normally we can bring it as dhammayatana because it's the ayatana teaching. So then we come into passa. Passa also arises together. So now when we focus on viññāna, we don't focus on them. So because of mano and dhamma, mano viññāna arises. So because of mano, dhamma, mano viññāna, when we focus on the passa itself, now this is our focus, yogi's focus. So yogi understands passa as a chetasika, but it is more clear to him that when these three have gathered, you can observe the effects
Okay.
of passa. Effects of passa. So instead of knowing passa in its real characteristic, the yogi understands based on some other factors. The passa is understood with these factors. So that's why to understand the characteristic of passa, it's rather than understand the characteristic of passa directly, it's easier to understand him based on some other factors. So that's why the gathering of these three is called the passa.
Okay, Bhante.
So it's a Vipassana.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, hi, Bhante. So I still have a little question, Bhante. So you mentioned, from my memory, then the in the Vibhavini, he mentions that the mind door is the Bhagwan Upachera, right? And then according to the Vibhanga and Visuddhimagga and also Lady Sayadaw, so then for those three, then they say that the mind door is any Bhagwanga, right? So but then you mentioned that, so somebody else mentioned that it's also Bhagwanga and the mind door adverting. So who is that, Bhante?
No, it's like this. When we talk about this VTs, you are correct. The Bhavanga is the mind door. But when we come to the Sutta, Chakkuncha, Paticca. So in this statement, right? So Chakku, if I remember, because of this cha, Chakku, the word Chakku, because of the cha, the word Chakku include the Chakku Pasada and also the Panchadwara Vajana. So this is how the Sutta has been interpreted. So when I'm talking about the Vitis here, in the Viti lectures, Mindo will be the Bhavanga, Avajana will be a Manovinyana. That's correct. But when we go into the explain that Sutta, particular Sutta of Ayatanas, Buddha mentioned, Manancha Paticca Dhammecha Upajjati Manovinyana and so forth. So in those suttas, the word cha, because of this word cha, Chakku, the word Chakku covers both the Pasada and the Avajana. Sota covers both the Pasada and Avajana. Mano covers the Bhavanga and the Avajana. So that is how the Sutta has been explained. You can find this in the Vibhanga commentary, that this is how, if you go into Ayatana or Dhatu, I forgot. Ayatana Vibhanga or Dhatu Vibhanga. I'll try to give you the reference. In one place, they consider this is how they interpret the term Sutta in the tradition, within the tradition.
I see. Okay, thank you, Bhante. Yeah, sadhu.
So no hands raised, right?
Oh, now the Sayale Punya.
Okay.
Please go ahead, Sayale Punya.
Morning, Bhante. So here is the Jakhongja. Here is the Madhubindika Sutta of the Munapanasa. So the other kata it mentions Jakhongja Avuso, like Ayamato Avuso, Nisaya Pavena, Jakupasatanja, Aramana Pavena, Jatu Samuthanika Rubeja, Patija Jakuvinyana Nama Upajati. So that means like include the Jakku Pasada and the Aramana.
Aramana, then?
And there's something like depending on that also. It has a Nisaya Pavena.
Right. Chakku Vinyana is the Vinyana. So we have Panchadwara Vajana is missing, right?
Yes.
Right?
Maybe the different commentaries. This is Madhubindika commentary.
Yeah, now still they haven't mentioned about the Panchadwara. They have just skipped it. So if you go into the Vibhanga commentary, they say this, because technically if you try to mix the Abhidhamma with this, so Avajana is missing, because we say normally for the Chakku Vinyana to arise, a very basic necessity is the Avajana, the adverting consciousness. So the adverting, where does it land? So it will be attributed to the word Chakku. So that's why they mention, because of the cha. Cha is not the cha doesn't represent the Avajana. because the cha indicates, it's an indicator. The cha is an indicator to show that chakku is not alone here. But chakku also constitutes avajjana also.
Okay,
So-
that means here the ja is including other dhammas as well.
No,
Right.
cha is the indicator saying that chakku has two, the chakku is not alone. It also includes the avajjana chitta and its cetasikas.
So if we don't read the commentary, how can we understand this?
That is why that one I'll unable to answer, because we know that we have discussed this many times, right?
Yeah.
We ask this question all the time. So and it's also not mentioned in the commentary even, right? Not
Yes.
in the commentary. So this is how the tradition have suggested. Maybe it seems like it is something that has come in at a later stage. Anyway, so normally we know bhavanga. So chakku, then chakku viññāna arises. Sorry, panchadvara avajjana, chakku viññāna, sampatichana, it goes and it strikes the object strikes. So here chakku is here, this one. Chakku is the eye. Rupa contacts here, the eye. Then chakku viññāna arises. Right? So bhavanga chitta is something other than that. Because of the chakku, because of the striking, the bhavanga we don't need to consider here because it's the door, it's a mind door. So after the contact, the chakku doesn't arise immediately. This has to happen. It's very basic requirement. Avajjana is a very basic requirement for any chitta to happen. So therefore, this avajjana will be missing. So the same thing comes with the manancha paticca dhamme chuppajjati mano viññāna. So that's why the word chakku and rupa, chakku viññāna, right? So this bhavanga, they want to incorporate this. So why? How they do it? The usage of cha, you see, indicates, puts it here. So savajjanam pasada, we normally say savajjanam pasada. The pasada together with the avajjana.
Okay. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu. And I think now Mr. Ananda raised his hand again.
Yeah.
Okay, please go ahead, Mr. Ananda.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ryan. Bhante, sorry, actually we are calling from the car, so sometimes not getting connected properly. Bhante, I have two questions actually. Now, when you say, Tinna Sangati Passo Passapacchya Vedana, Yang Vedeti Tang Sanjanati, so there the Sanya is followed by Vedana. So can the reverse order also take place? Like firstly you start Sanya, then you get Vedana.
It's a very good question. Yeah, it's very something that we need to analyze. So according to Venerable Buddhaghosa, possible. According to Venerable Buddhaghosa, it's possible. Like yang sanjanati tang vedeti, yang vedeti tam pusati. There is no significance in it. But for the ancient commentaries, Buddhaghosa has argued on this matter. He has suggested, I don't see that he doesn't see any significance of passa over others. But the ancient commentaries, ancient commentaries suggested that passa is the most among the cetasik. Chitta is the forerunner, that's for sure, because Buddha has mentioned this. That's for sure, it has been mentioned in many places. Among the cetasikas, and also passa, chitta needs the support of passa, that's also very clear. Among the cetasikas, passa stands as the pinnacle of a roof, like Kagara. So therefore they suggest that's why the passa was preached first, and then so it shows that Vedana, Sanya also have a great influence over others. So according to the ancient commentaries, they didn't discuss about the Vedana and Sanya, that we can analogically apply this. The Passa was preached in the beginning with a purpose. But when Buddhaghosa suggests, you can see this in the commentary for Attasalini. If you go, the ones who know Pali can go into Passa Panchamaka Vannana. I'll just first write it because some listeners can go into the reading. Passa Panchamaka Vannana. Right, in Dhammasangani commentary. So the ancient commentaries say that's why the Passa was preached first. It has a significant role and it can be proven in many suttas. Normally, Passa Pachaya Vedana. And also, Vedana never comes before Passa normally in suttas. So therefore, and also Sanya comes after Vedana. So there is a significant reason for this order. So, but when Buddhaghosa didn't like it, he says to him, it doesn't make much sense. So he says any order would be okay. So then whenever Lady Sayadaw writing the Paramattha Dipani suggested that the ancient commentaries were precise on this matter. So he also preferred that the preaching of Passa in the beginning has some meaning. So though they arise together, though they happen together in a cluster, the role the Passa plays is significant over others. So as your question comes, we should not reverse the order. We can reverse in terms of the time, temporarily, we can reverse it in terms of time, but not in terms of the significant role they play in the cluster.
Yeah, Bhante, actually my question mainly between Vedana and Sanya, but also I have heard Sabbe Dhamma Passamulika, like, you know, all the Dhamma starts with the contact, right? So that is, I think, understandable. To me, it makes sense. But now when you say Vedana Pachya Sanya, but sometimes, for example, okay, I see a person, you know, walking on the road, and then I recognize him as an enemy or a person who is not friendly with me. Then I get the bad feeling or negative feeling, emotion. So there the sanya or the, you know, recognition starts first, right? So and also you can start first, you can get a vedana, you know, like some bad vedana or some kaya gata sati and some kind of a, you know, bodily sensation. Then you can get a sanya later on. So both can work. So so that's correct, isn't it, Bhante?
No, it's like this, because now there are two teachings saying that Sabbe Dhamma Vedana Samosarana, all the Dhammas can be gathered in Vedana, like it was said in the Passa. And also there is a teaching about the Sanya, Sabbe, like Sanya Nidhana or something, some teachings. There are in various places the Buddha has given priority to different realities. So if I go into Sanya Nidana Hi Prapancha Samudaya and so forth, there are some the significance of Sanya over some defilements and so forth. And then all the realities can be gathered in Vedana also, he has mentioned, and also in the Passa. So these three have had their own significant roles in the teachings. As you said, in the practical aspect, so my first explanation was based on as it was given to Passa. So we see the order. Normally we don't see Sanya Yan Sanjanati Tam Vedeti according to the teachings. So that's why I mentioned that if the Passa was given the priority, the Vedana should be given the priority over Sanya. It seems like. But in actual practical life, we see, as you said, sometimes we recognize the person and then we start to feel good or bad about him. Before that, we didn't have a significant feeling. I would not say no feeling. A significant feeling was not there. So maybe that was the reason. Maybe that was the reason when Buddhaghosa was suggesting that he doesn't see much difference in the order. So, but when we go into the explanation of Abhidhamma, we find when the processes have been explained, in the first VT, the most significant in the Javana process is the Vedana. It starts to feel it. But that feeling may not be that much, because the thing is, like, the object, when an object is properly known, if we go into the depths of the explanation, we find for the object to be properly known, the mind has to have a sensitivity, or should be sensitive to its taste. Taste means the flavor. So if the flavor is not known well, the object is not known well. So that is the basic explanation why the feeling should be found in each and every consciousness, because if then it doesn't come into the level of perfect cognition. So in that aspect, we would say even before someone has recognized someone, the cognition has to happen perfectly. For that, the perfect cognition is facilitated by Vedana. So in that sense, still someone can argue that Vedana comes, the significant role of Vedana is prior to Sanya. But as you said, in the practical life, it is obvious that we recognize someone, and only after the recognition we starts to get the memories and starts to get that resentment and all
feelings.
Yeah. So maybe that was these were the reasons that when Buddhaghosa said he doesn't see much specific, even it's Passa he mentioned, not in all the Cetasikas. He said you can start with any. He doesn't see much significance of one Cetasika over other. But when we come to some other perspectives, we see Passa has been preached in the beginning, and the Vedana, because the Vedana facilitates the proper cognition, and then the Sanya recognition. So after these three have happened, all the other mental factors starts to play the role.
Okay. Okay. Bhante, there's another little part, the second part of the question. So when we reconcile between the Chitta Viti and this process, like Tinnan Sangati Passo, Pasapachya Vedana and all that, Vedana, and there, when it comes to Papancha, so that is the level where we start the karma, right? Or the Javana. So Tinnan Sangati Passo, Pasapachya Vedana, these are all karma vipaka kind of. I mean, we can kind of think like that, right?
Exactly. They are vipaka level. But
yeah, they are vipaka.
It's like this. There are two ways of explaining. When we say Vedana, they are normally we go into the Vedana of the Vijnana. This is the Vedana here. But then what we come is we also come some statements where the Chakku Vijnana has a pleasant feeling and so forth. In that case, the Vedana of the Chakku, now the Tinna Pasapachya Vedana. So this Pasapachya Vedana has been explained in two ways in the tradition. One is the Vedana of the Chakku Vijnana we can take, or the Vedana of the entire process so can be understood with the entire process. So when it comes to Papancha, we can either bring, I'm not perfectly, my memory was not perfect in this matter. We can bring, yeah, for sure the Papancha is the Javana level. There's no argument with it. Papancha cannot have in this level, cannot have in this level. But the Vedana, we have two interpretations. We can bring the Vedana of the Chakku or Vedana of the entire Viti.
Okay, Bhante, thank you.
Most of the Vedanas which arise in all the Chittas.
Okay. Yeah, Bohoping, Bhante, thank you so much.
Hi, Bhante. I'm sorry, because we brought up the Phassa Panchamaka. So I have a question about that, Bhante. So, so in the so we know that according to Abhidhamma Sankaha, so we have 7 Sapachitta Sadharana, right? So and then Phassa Vedana Cetana Sanya Ekagata Jivita Indriya and Manasikara. So in the Phassa Panchamaka, then we in there we have Phassa, Vedana, Cetana, and Sanya, and then Citta. And we know that Ekakata and Jivita, it appears in other groups. But so why did the Buddha put the Manasikara in the group of the Yewapanaka?
I think they have given explanation on this. They say one is they are not very prominent, and some other reason. I forgot it actually. One is that they are not that much prominent. That's the explanation I remember. They're not much prominent. It's one of the difficult, but someone can argue Manasikara is quite obvious. Yeah, I have to go into the commentary to see what the reason, what they have suggested. but they, when I discussed with my friend, I found was like they Devapanaka. Yeah, they suggest that Chitta and one is that some are not always found, like Karuna, Mudita, and so forth. But as you said, Manasikara is Manasikara and Tattva Majjatata also can be found in all the Kusala Chittas. If my memory was correct, they were telling that it was not very obvious, something like that. Just I'll go into the doesn't give anything. Tantan rasi kichcha vasena vibhaga rahita vibatta. Yata uttesu pana rasisu eka rasi kichchasapi abhava chandhadev eva pana. Then this is the idea of the subcommentators. Now we have groups, right? Passa Panchamaka, Jananga, and so forth, right? So in these, then we have to go in why the group categorization was there, why the groups were categorized. So for that categorization, to the criterion which was used to categorize certain groups, so these Chetasikas do not fit into such groups. So that was the expression of the given by the sub-commentator. Like Passa Panchamaka, then we have to find out what is the criteria behind this classification of 5. So Manasikara doesn't fit into that. So it means those are not the Sabbachitta classification. The first 5, the Passa Panchamaka was preached because of one reason, one kind of method. Then the Jananga was different, Indriya and so forth. So there are, I think, 10 or 12 groups within that Dhammasangani Chittupada. So none of them fit into any of the groups. So that's why they were left away.
I see.
So it means then we have to go in to find what is the criteria behind Passa Panchamaka. Vedana, Jananga and all we know that we have already studied. Then we have to study what is the criterion behind Passa Panchamaka. Why he preached this, based on what some 5, only 5 of them fell into this. So that characteristic based on which they were classified is not found in Chanda, Manasikara, Tattva, and all these.
Yeah, just because I asked this because the 8 remaining Chittasikas in the Yewa Panaka, they don't always associate with the Chittas. We know that, but Manasikara is a Sabbachitta Sararana, so it's kind of strange.
So they say Yata Vittesapana Rasisu, the groups that have been explained. Ekarasi Kichasapi Abhava, Chandhadev Jeva, Chanda and so forth doesn't have any of the functions of these groups. Like they don't fall into Jananga, Indriya, and all these. And also, this Passa Panchamaka was also preached based on a certain function.
I see.
That function is not found. That's what they're saying.
I see. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Yeah, and yeah, we don't have any more questions, Bhante, for today. Thank you, Bhante.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So may this merit of discussing Dhamma assist us to attain our liberation, and also may the Buddha Sasana last long for the betterment of the world. Buddha Sasanang Chirantithatu, Buddha Sasanang Chirantithatu, Buddha Sasanang Chirantithatu, Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu.
Thank you so much, Bhante. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.